I feel like there's beauty in everything. I'm one of those like kind of starstruck people who thinks, everything is beautiful in its own way. And so beauty really, it's about perspective and it's about the way that we are looking at things and the way that we are interacting with things.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk. We feature the top practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Jennifer Elmberg, a licensed clinical social worker, author, speaker, and founder of Align North, a thriving mental health practice in northern Minnesota. She specializes in trauma, anxiety, OCD, and integrative mental health, helping people heal through evidence-based therapy while honoring the connection between mind and body. Jennifer is also the author of Mari's Magical Mind Garden, a children's book that teaches emotional resilience and is passionate about making mental health conversations approachable, empowering, and stigma-free. Whether she's working with clients, speaking at conferences, or creating online content, her mission is simple: to help people leave feeling a little more hopeful than when they arrived. So Jennifer, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning. What first got you interested in, let's start with the broad field, in the medical field.
Yeah, so I came from a very medical family. Both of my grandmas on both sides were nurses, and I had initially, like straight out of high school, went to nursing school and thought, like, this is just what I'm destined to be. Like, I have a family of EMTs and nurses, and that's pretty much just the field that I'm meant to go into. And as I started nursing school and got, close towards the end of it, I realized like, oh my gosh, I actually don't want to be a nurse. And and so I did a little soul searching and I ended up meeting with an advisor and she had said, have you ever thought about like social work or like going into mental health? And at that time, I thought that's just not for me. And she had convinced me to take one class. And so I did, and I fell in love with it. And, kind of the rest is history. From there, I finished out my degree with psychology and then clinical social work. So,
Okay. And then that led you to your business, Align North. Uh, Tell me, what prompted you to decide to start your own business?
so I had kind of always had this dream of having my own practice and being able to just kind of um, customize it, I guess, to my own approach, because I take a very integrative and holistic approach, and there is not a lot of that up where I am at in northern Minnesota. And so I wanted to be able to offer that, and I decided that the best thing that I could do to be able to do that would be to open my own practice and kind of custom tailor my services.
Got it. Okay. Now, speaking about your services and the conditions you largely treat, I know you treat trauma, OCD, anxiety, and also integrative mental health. So, can you talk about what is integrative mental health?
Yeah. So essentially integrative mental health it's just that it's integrated. And so what we do is with that, we look at like lifestyle changes that people can make to improve their mental health. We look at, what kind of like, are they taking medications and can we work with their, primary care provider? Is there a medical, like a physical cause for some of the mental health symptoms that they may be having? And then also looking at other alternative treatments like acupuncture and massage and yoga and things like that, and just really combining kind of everything to integrate their care and look at more of a whole systems approach versus just talk therapy where we're just talking about the flavor of the week or the problem of the week or whatever has come up. We're really looking at what sort of lifestyle changes can you make? What sort of, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What does your doctor say? When is the last time you went to the doctor? All of those kinds of things, and just integrating all of that together.
Got it. Okay. Now, when it comes to some of these conditions, the trauma, OCD, anxiety, I know they're individualized, but I'm sure there's also a lot of crossover as far as someone
Mhm,
has some trauma, then that's probably leading to anxiety or OCD. I'm sure there's
mhm,
also individualized, someone just had trauma, but maybe they don't have anxiety. But
mhm.
you can talk a little bit more about that. Like if someone, I guess, is trauma kind of the root cause of it, or are there other items that could be the root cause and the overlap? Just kind of talk a little bit deeper about that. So the average person who may be going through this and kind of understand a little bit more about maybe they're not alone out there.
Yeah. Yeah, trauma is often the root cause for a lot of mental health issues. And so a lot of times when you look back, even if there has been some sort of catalyst event or something that, some not necessarily even trauma, but something that was maybe chronically stressful or something that kind of caused a mental health issue. But there's also factors like epigenetics. And so there's like a whole field of epigenetics kind of study where they look at um, it's kind of historical trauma and things like that. So for those of us who have like ancestors who were like walk the trail of tears, so I have great 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 grandparents that were forcefully relocated on the Trail of Tears. You look at Holocaust survivors, things like that. So their ancestors and how those genetics travel down essentially through, into where we are today or who we are today, and inform the mental health of us today, essentially.
Okay. So now when it comes to the treatment side of it, there's a couple different types of treatments that you offer, I guess, the types of therapies. So I want to go through those one by one. You have the accelerated resolution therapy, or I guess ART for short. Can you
Yes.
talk about what is that, and I guess what's the concept behind that type of therapy?
Yeah. So you'll probably get to this, but so ART I always say is kind of like EMDR's little cousin. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So you may be almost on the cusp of asking me about that.
Mhm.
But I always say ART is kind of like EMDR's little cousin. So they both use what's called bilateral stimulation. So usually it's like if you and I were sitting in the office, I would be sitting in front of you, waving my hand back and forth, and you would be following it with your eyes. And I would be guiding you through a scene or what we call as a scene. And that helps to kind of help you be able to remember whatever has happened without having to relive the event. Because what happens oftentimes with trauma or, like flashbacks, things like that, people are often experiencing the event over and over and over again. So anytime something kind of triggers it or reminds you of it, you kind of have this visceral response. And so what we're doing with ART or even EMDR is we're trying to remove some of that visceral response by kind of using memory reconsolidation through the use of bilateral eye movement.
Okay. So both are based on eye movement, though.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they're both based on eye movement. There are other, sometimes we will use like if there is issues with like maybe like somebody can't use eye movement for whatever reason, we will do like tapping or like some therapists have tappers that clients will hold in their hand and they vibrate alternatively, or we have the client do what's called butterfly tapping where they're just tapping on their arms bilaterally. So you're just really looking at like bilateral stimulation. So alternative or alternate stimulation.
Okay. Is that what makes the ART different from the EMDR? It may not rely so much on the eye movement, where the EMDR really is on eye movement.
ART also does rely pretty heavily on the eye movement as well, but you can use either or for both. So ART is kind of it's different in from EMDR in that the resourcing is kind of built in. So EMDR, a lot of times for some clients who have been through it, um, it often takes several sessions where like you're doing a lot of what I call front loading. And so where you're teaching the client how to cope with really big emotions or what in the EMDR world is called ab reactions or things like that. You're really teaching them before you even begin the work, like diving into the actual work of processing the traumatic event, you're doing all of that front loading. Whereas ART, it's all incorporated into one session. And so you're doing the resourcing and all of that in the same session. ART is a lot more guided than EMDR. And so it can feel different in that way as like the therapist or the clinician who you're seeing is guiding you like, okay, now I want you to set that scene aside and do this, or so you're being guided, whereas EMDR, you're kind of just going down a lot of different rabbit holes, which is also helpful in some cases, but for cases like a car accident or something along those lines, ART can be really nice because it's kind of like a one and done, or not necessarily one and done, but it's a shorter term therapy.
Got it. Okay. Now, I want to move on to the internal family systems, the IFS. What is that?
Yeah, so internal family systems was created by Richard Schwartz or Dick Schwartz. And it kind of uses like all of the different parts of ourself. And so I am what's called IFS informed. I did a IFS circle training. There's all kinds of different levels to it, but essentially we have all of these different parts of ourselves that help us to stay safe and to stay functional essentially in different situations. And so we have our protector parts. Those are the parts of us. So, like, the sassy teenager part that I might have that comes out at certain times. That helps me function in maybe a very defensive type, like an argument or whatever. And with IFS, what we're doing is sometimes we're identifying who all of those parts are: the therapist part, the mom part, the, wife part, the whatever. We're identifying all of these parts and kind of categorizing who are you in all of these different areas of your life. And then we are kind of teaching a client how to, you know, interact with those parts, how to let those parts kind of step aside so they don't get in the way of your functioning, essentially, because sometimes those protector parts can really get in the way of relationships. Like they might be that, protector part of me may have that sassy teenager, protector part may have been very useful for me at one point in my life. But now, as an adult, if I'm interacting with my husband, that sassy teenager who, is very like rebellious and resistant and all of those things may really get in the way and may cause arguments in, my relationship. And so, internal family systems helps clients to be able to identify those parts and to be able to kind of let them set aside while our authentic self is able to interact in situations.
Okay. Now, I'm sure, Jennifer, that kind of throughout your experience, you've worked with a lot of different clients, a lot of different patients, and heard a lot of different myths or misconceptions that they have about treatment, about therapy, about trauma. What would you say some of the most common misconceptions or myths that you've heard?
Yeah, I hear often like, can you fix me, or can you fix my child, or can like the desire to be fixed. And it's not that that doesn't come from a place of like, genuine um, desire to be healed or to be fixed, but the reality is like it's not really a destination. And so oftentimes I will explain that to clients when they come in is that we are meant to feel anxious, we are meant to feel sad and angry sometimes. It's not Therapy is not here to take away any of those feelings. They're all there for a reason, and they're all there to inform you about something or whatever. But what we are here to do is we're here to help you function with those feelings and learn how to move through them and how to kind of invite them to the table, without having to let them stay overnight, kind of thing. And so with therapy, I often am explaining to clients about, that like healing is not a destination, it's a journey. I know that's kind of a corny saying, but I love it because it is very true. And so one of the biggest misconceptions that I see is, can you just fix me? Or I don't want to feel anxious anymore. Or I don't want to feel angry anymore. And really, what people are saying is, I don't want this to impact my life the way it has been, but not so much that I don't want to feel that anymore. Because if we take away anger, we never feel joy. And if we take away, anxiety, we don't know what it's like to feel calm. And so we have to have those, balance of emotions.
Okay. Now, when it comes to how some of these, I guess, behaviors can manifest for people, like when it comes from a place of trauma, how do you typically see the trauma manifesting in their life? I know that you talked about perfectionism and people pleasing, which I guess can be
Mhm.
one form of manifestation, but can you like dive a little bit deeper into that and also some other things that you've seen as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So oftentimes, especially when somebody has grown up in a very, you know, chaotic environment, you will see people pleasing kind of manifest, itself because it's a way of kind of keeping themselves safe, essentially, like, um, what's referred to as like a trauma legacy. So it's, something that you developed while you were maybe experiencing abuse or neglect or, a very chaotic and stressful, um, situation or environment. But you developed this people pleaser, part of you, or you developed that like kind of behavior because it kept you safe. If you're constantly making sure everybody is safe, then the target is never on your back because everybody's happy. And so oftentimes that will kind of manifest in that way. But also, kind of the opposite of that is like the people who are very defensive, or the people who are also, um, very angry all of the time. Trauma can also manifest like that. That's another way, if we're looking at that trauma legacy aspect of it, there's another way of like that also, kept them safe at some point in their life. And now, as when they're out of that traumatic environment, they may not necessarily need to be angry and defensive all the time, but they're still experiencing that as a kind of manifestation of their trauma. And you see other, things. I know narcissism is kind of a buzzword right now. It's like a buzz psychology type of word right now. But ultimately, when you look at, narcissistic kind of traits in people, narcissistic personality disorder is very rare, by the way, just on its own. But if you look at, some narcissistic traits that people might have, that's also oftentimes a manifestation of, trauma. Usually when you look back at what that person's childhood was like or things like that, there was often a lot of chaos or neglect or abuse. And so it oftentimes runs deeper, those behaviors like that, those personality traits. Um,
Mhm. Okay. And how do you see beauty and mental wellness intersecting?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things that, like, in order to accept yourself the way that you are, essentially, like, you want to have your mental health in alignment. So, um, I see kind of it as the whole like person, so beauty is a part of mental health because it is a part of the whole person, right? So we do things that make us feel good. And oftentimes when I'm like, oh, well, what makes you feel good about yourself? It's something beauty related, right? With like clients, it's, like, oh, I go to the gym and I work out, or which can also be physical, but, or like I go and I get a facial, or I, go and get my hair done, or, those kinds of things. So it's really about that whole person and like, why does that make you feel good? How does that make you feel good? And so when you can accept yourself, like just your body for what it is and how it functions, and do some of those things that make you feel better about the body that you're in, that's where I see it intersecting.
Got it. Okay. Now, when it comes to the future, where do you think the future of mental health is going?
I'm excited to see where the future of mental health is going because it seems like it has changed so much in, I've been in the mental health field for over a decade now, and even just since the beginning of my time in the mental health field, um, it's changed so much in so many different ways. We've become much more trauma informed, and we've become much more holistic and looking at the whole person versus, um, you know, compartmentalizing like, oh, your physical body has nothing to do with your, mental health. And, it used to be so disconnected, and now it's becoming much more integrated, which is really exciting for me to see. And so I think the future of mental health is going to continue like with the kind of more of the study of epigenetics and things like that, and how our DNA really impacts our mental health. And also I'm hoping we'll just continue to go down the road of being trauma informed, and making spaces more trauma informed. So not even just, trauma informed, care at your therapist office, but trauma informed care at your hair salon, or trauma informed care, or trauma informed, businesses, things like that. So I see mental health really expanding into kind of a lot of areas of our life, and just becoming more of a part of our overall wellness.
Okay. And with the future in mind, also, what's the vision you have for your practice?
Yeah. So I to go in that direction, right? Like that, trauma informed and integrative direction. So my hope, I recently took a trauma informed yoga teacher training. So my hope is to be able to incorporate that into my practice more, and teach classes and things like that. I've been practicing yoga for about just over 20 years now. And that has been meaningful and very helpful in my life. And so just being able to share that with my community and with other people has been really exciting. And to just continue to be kind of a pillar of integrative mental health care on the Iron Range in Minnesota, the northern part of the state, where it's kind of small and rural. And I hope that my practice can just continue to grow in that area.
Got it. Okay. Well, Jennifer, I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at wealignnorth.com.
Yes, thank you.
Now, last question for you. What does beauty mean to you?
Oh, I feel like there's beauty in everything. I'm one of those like kind of starstruck people who thinks, everything is beautiful in its own way. And so beauty really, it's about perspective, and it's about the way that we are looking at things and the way that we are interacting with things. And so while there are some days where I might look in the mirror and be like, ugh, but there's a lot of days where I can look in the mirror and be happy with what I am seeing and knowing that I'm, also a part of, the world that is beautiful or that can be very beautiful.
Okay, well, there you have it. Jennifer sharing your expertise. So, Jennifer, where can people contact you in your practice?
Yeah, so we alignnorth.com is the one of the best ways to contact us. There's a contact form on the website, and so that is one of the best ways to reach me individually or my email, which is just jennifer@wealignnorth.com. Um, those are usually the best two ways to reach me and to reach my practice.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, this is great. Thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your message.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.